Welcome back to another Ted Draws Dungeons. As you can see, I did the stippling in here, which turned out kind of nice, I think. I really like that. Still need to do the vent stack here and then the tiling. But before I do that, I'm going to come over here and put in the doors. Because. Where is my Pigma pen? Where'd you go? My favorite. There it is. Pigma. All right. Yeah. Okay. So now, what I'm going to do is figure out what goes over here. Yeah. Hallways. There's not a lot going on here. There's going to definitely be doors here. So what I would say is we're going to have two sets of doors. Actually, a set of doors. One coming off right here. And then one coming off right here. That leads into this area here. And then over here, I'm going to have a double door. Because I think this is Boss Man's office. That's what that is. It's exactly what that is. We're going to have door, I think like this. Coming through here. More double doors. I like that. Wow. Turned out we've got 3 rooms down here and that's it, so. Okay. Nice thing about this is I had this as some kind of a special room. Therefore, there's actually thick walls and 2 doors separating these areas here. And then just to be dastardly, bam. Bam. There's a trap in the middle. I'm going to put the dots that I'm going to be using pretty soon down. I'm going. Put some here, some there. Over here. If you remember, this is how I do floor tiles. When I say floor tiles, I don't really mean tiling, because I don't know, it'd be kind of cool to see if a dungeon had tile. Someone took the time to put tiling down. And you know, not everything's a dungeon. I keep saying dungeon just because I like the word so much, but and the idea and the concept of a dungeon. But this is a Dwarven Citadel, so we haven't even gotten to the good stuff that's below it yet, really. So far, it was an entrance, had some kind of legal offices, I guess you could say. A second level that was more like a mezzanine with a rotunda for shops. And then this is where workers would have been. But that's about it. Yeah. One thing we're missing here, I just realized, is going to go right here. Right here is going to be a big staircase that goes down. And I'll tell you the reasoning behind this. The reason there should be a big staircase that goes down here is because all these workers have to get to some place to go work. So this is where they would file out and come down here and go down to the next level, which I'm actually not going to be designing that level, but that's my idea. That's where the workers would come from. So there's just one way in, one way out. So if anything bad happened, like a collapse, they could be stuck down there. But I think that's adequate. Okay, so I'm going to get right on the tiling, and then we'll see how much time we have to maybe do a little bit more stippling. You like my dice? That's for the camera to focus on, but I kind of left it where it was last time. I rolled a 20 and 90 percentile, so doing pretty good. Okay, through here, I'm gonna be a little bit more careful about how I do the floor tiles, but not like worry about it too much. Because once again, I'm leaving that because that's gonna be a circle. Actually, I'll put that in now. Put in a rough circle. And then later on, I'll have to come in through there and do more of the detail, because I kind of envision that as like a fountain, some kind of a fountain. So I'm gonna do like this. Here we go. And then continue on the tiling. I wonder what kind of lighting they had in this place. Torches. If you look on YouTube, I can't remember, it's been so long since I've looked it up. It was a couple of years ago, but I looked up, there was a guy who had actually gone into a cave, and he took some torches with him and he lit them up. And the interesting thing was, right away, you could figure out that there's no way that you could really explore, unless it were a really big cave. I mean, there's so much smoke that a torch puts off. That, and I think the other thing, if I remember, is to hold a torch out like this is almost blinding. You'd have to hold it behind you. It's an interesting take, because when I was a kid, oops, my alarm's going off. When I was a kid, we used to, torches. We just thought that was the coolest thing, a big flaming stick. So when I played D&D, we'd use torches. And of course, as you get older and you start to play with other DMs, and they say, well, your torch went out. We're like, what? Because when you're a kid, your torch never goes out. Sometimes, if your DM was smart enough to remember. But most of the time, man, you carried that sucker everywhere. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna go out, and then we're gonna come this direction. Might not be as neat as I want it to be, because it's a little hard for me to go left to right like that. But I don't want to move the paper. I found that if I move the paper in film, it gets really out of whack. So I like this. I like the rough nature of this. Remember, we're down into an area here where it's basically barracks. So the cave, not cave, the area flooring might even be more rugged. A little, wouldn't be like maybe they had marble in the rotunda area, but not here. These are workers. These are the grunts. So, yeah, I would imagine there would have been more barracks back here, but somehow this one survived. we got this hallway. Comes over here. Like so. And then this room. Master's chambers. Did they gather for the feast? I don't think so. I think this person didn't let anybody in. That was his room. Or her room. Over here. Put this in. And as far as that goes, their room. Come up here. Do you think this is a treasury? Do you think it's some kind of explosive? What do they keep in this room? Why were there two doors? Why was there a trap in between them? Or maybe that was a decoy. Who knows? Okay. Oh, I already had extra small. I did that with extra small. Doesn't really look extra small, but that's okay. What I'm going to do now, blowing that a little bit, just get it to dry, make sure it's dry. So I'm going to put my hand down. Good so far. Okay. Now I'm just going to kind of take my time and go back through and put the wiggle wiggles in. That's what these do. Let's just make it nice. Gives it an edge. I don't know if you've ever seen a cake. I don't know. Well, the way they used to make cakes with like a sheet pancake, kind of, or even a sauteed tile. It'll rise up in the center, kind of, and it has like this weird edge. It's kind of what I think of every time I do these. And now I want cake. You know, it's funny. I read an article once that said that if you eat chocolate cake in the morning, it's actually not bad for you. I mean, compared to all the other things that you could eat. Me, I'm on a diet. I'm on a diet. When I first got diagnosed with MS, I got fat boy syndrome. I ate and did nothing. I was depressed, so I sat around. I literally did not get out of a chair. I mean, obviously I did, but during the day, I stayed in a recliner for, I would say, the good part of a year, really. That's all I did. In that year, I left the apartment. I don't know, I could count the amount of times on my hands, on my fingers. That's how many times. It was just, I can't drive. And wasn't working, couldn't do anything. Just stayed home, watched TV. I found there was a channel on YouTube called Slot Lady, and Slot Lady is this lady that goes to Las Vegas and plays slot machines. That's like big now. There are like a lot of channels on YouTube where people are playing slot machines. I don't know how they get by with it, because every now and then you see them, well, they don't really bust Slot Lady, but everybody else, they get busted. And you can see them like they're all excited, and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll put the camera away. Like security walked out to them, which I don't think they should do that. You know, what's the big deal? There's no secret information you're going to glean from someone filming a slot machine. And I don't know. Brian Berg, I think, works in the industry, so he may be going, yes, there is, Ted. They can see all kinds of this and that, but I don't know. Can't you see that if you're in Vegas? If you just walk up to the slot machine? So I don't know what the big secret is. I think just maybe just a security issue. They don't want people having cameras in a casino, I'm sure, at all, but it's kind of impossible. People have phones. You know, everybody has a camera. Even the crappiest phones out now that have cameras, the cameras in those are way better than the digital cameras that came out in the 90s. So I remember I was working for a newspaper when the first digital cameras came out, and all the photographers were like, this is never never going to work. It's never going to take on. And at the time, they were right. I mean, they were not good. And they had really, really, and you could take like 10 pictures and that was it. Next to nothing as far as memory went. I don't even think they had like, you know, the little SD cards. I don't think those were even invented yet. I think your memory was like on your phone, or excuse me, on the camera itself. So once the camera was full, you had to go get everything off of it. And man, getting pictures off took forever. Took forever. And so the photographers are like, well, I mean, we had a dark room in the newspaper. They could just go in there and develop their film. That's what they wanted to do. This is fun. I love doing this part. I don't know why. It's just so relaxing just to make the surface. And what I try to do is get as close to the edge without touching it. Because then, I don't want to do one wrong, but if you do it too small, it just doesn't look right to me. So you almost want to, and you don't need to do a complete square. You just want to kind of touch down. You know, I don't want to do like dotted lines, but what I usually do is I do like brackets like this, like that, and like this, and like that, and like this, and like that. And then mix it up a little bit. So I'll come down here, do this part, then I'll do this part. Yeah, it just looks cool. I just love the rugged look like this. The nice thing too is that when you do this, the way that you did your original square, if you kind of aren't really on point, which I'm not really today, I'm just having a day. This covers it up because this makes the other lines look kind of straight. So it's like a, you know, it's a method you can use to cover up, I don't want to say sloppiness, but irregularities in the way you originally started to do it. See there, I made like an entire square. It doesn't really look right that way, like pieces of squares. This is more like, it's more tricking the eye than anything. I mean, none of this is realistic. Dungeons or any kind of anything is not divided by 10 by 10 sections. Unless that actually is tile. Okay, so there we got all the tiles in. Now what I'm going to do, go back to my Pigma, and I'm going to go around through all the doors, and there aren't many. We already kind of thickened that one up, but right here, you can see how things kind of disappear because we've got lines and then this is a room, but the dividing point for the room is actually right here. So this, we're going to have to make a little bit thicker. There we go. And I think that's going to be enough. It's throwing you off now too because these aren't filled in. It's hard when you do little areas like that inside the dungeon. It's hard to make it pop and make it not be distracting almost, I guess. You know, to the point where it's like, what is that? I'll go in here real quick and just fill one in just so you can see. So this is, we're going to stipple these, so but these edges are going to get colored in. And I don't want to mess up my Pigma. So I'm going to go to, oh, where'd it go? Where'd my extra small go? Over here. Constantly losing pens. There it is. I'm using extra small because this is a really tiny area. So I'm going to come in here, fill this in. And I think in the previous video I had talked about, you know, I wanted, you know, any kind of a structure like this in a mountain, there would have to be some huge support. So these are basically, it could be columns, it could be anything, but we're just going to stipple them just to show that they're not dungeon. And there's dungeon, not dungeon. That's the simplest way. If you try to do too many, I don't know, too many textures or different techniques, that gets confusing too. And then it's like, obviously, like this wouldn't be dirt. You know, this would be some kind of a metal support or something, or a giant column. You can do that too. You can definitely do that. It doesn't have to be, this could have been one big room, just round circles with some kind of edging around it to indicate columns. But that's not what these are. These are some kind of reinforced wall that's kind of serving as a block to keep everything from collapsing. So I don't know. I don't have the specifics on that, and you know, that's for you to decide too. That's the fun thing about doing these too, is it's like when I write, I suggest a lot of things. And people don't realize that, but most of it's description. You don't really want to be describing too much when you're writing, because then it gets boring. That's called the difference between showing and telling. When you're telling someone every little detail, then it gets kind of boring. That doesn't mean that there's not a time for listing off some detail, just not through the whole book, unless it's a kind of book that requires that. And by that, I just mean a technical manual almost, you know, something that's a little bit way more precise. And the reason for that is you want to stimulate the mind and make your writing cinematic, you know. And that's kind of what I'm doing with these dungeons, is I'm giving indications of where rooms are, what they could be. And I don't want to do all the detail, because then it would just be a module. And the nice thing here is you can, you know, take this, and the same 100 people wouldn't come up with the same dungeon or the same dungeon crawl, you know? So that's what's nice about it. I like putting these little hash marks every now and then, because everyone's like, what's that mean? I'm like, I don't know. Pieces of wood, broken support beams, cobwebs. I don't know. I just think they look cool. So if we do this, bam, 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 just makes it look, it almost reminds me of, remember old cartoons where, you know, the guy would get beat up and they'd have like cross marks on him, like he got stitches, you know? Probably don't remember those. Okay. So now, that's pretty much all the stippling we're gonna do on the inside. I'm gonna go back to Pigma, and we're just gonna look around real quick. Are there any other walls? Not really. We'll see how this right here is going to be a lot more prominent once we go around and do the stippling, I think. So before I do anything more there, I'm going to do that. So let's go to my medium. Get any boogers off the end of it. Let's just start right about here. Yeah, let's start right about here. So I'm just going to do this. Squiggly lines, squiggly squirrels, swirly swirls around here, just all over the place, just whoopity-doo. Doesn't matter at this point. We're just getting random black in there. So I go out, no big deal. I don't want to go in, because that'll invade the room area, encroach upon all that. We don't want to do that, because that's what we're trying to do by doing this outlining, is making the shape of whatever the structure is stand out. That's all this is accomplishing. We don't need any of it. If you just did a map like this, it would work. You wouldn't need all this. This is artistry. This is not that I'm a fine artist, but you know what I mean. This is like, it's an enhancement. And then everything that I do, I try to make it to where it's improving upon the look, the aesthetics. Even though it's old school and rough looking, if it's too rough, it just looks sloppy. And I'm borderline on that half the time. So I take a lot of effort to make my outlining a little bit better, because I know that when the human eye looks at something, they take the entirety of it into account. They don't take, at least initially, they don't take the minutia into account. That almost looks kind of cool, doesn't it? Looks like chain. Ooh, I gotta play with that. But the human eye likes to see order. And at least purpose. So by looking at some random squares that are roughly drawn with some squiggles on top and some, dotted lines like this, it provides that. Okay, now we get into some stippling. And actually, I'm in my fine. What am I doing? I'm gonna go to my, where'd that S go? Where'd that S car go? All right, S, here we go. Yeah. This, get the big ones in. Then we'll come around here, around here, around here. We're basically doing what we did over here now. Which I realized I'm gonna go down to here on this, and then I'll speed up the rest of the way. So, yeah. Tell me in the comments here. I mean, right now the channel's probably at like 25 people, maybe not much more. So we're kind of a small group. What do you think? What do you think? Is there anything I can do to improve? I'm trying to, I probably pretty much maxed out on lighting and camera and microphone technologies here. I don't think I'm going to get much better at that, because I can't really afford to go get much more. Maybe someday. But for now, I know you can hear me because I watched the videos. I know you can see relatively clearly. I had some videos there that were not the best. They were kind of haphazard. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's working. So for now, we're going to have to tough it out together until I maybe grow this channel, and maybe, YouTube has a monetization program. I don't know if you know that, but to get on it, you have to have, they changed it. It used to be early on in the days of YouTube that you just basically, anybody could do it. Well, now the only channels that are monetized have to have 100,000, or excuse me, I'm wrong, 1,000 subscribers, and I think 40,000 views or minutes watched, 40,000 minutes watched in the previous month that you're applying for monetization. So doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot. It was really hard to get my writer channel to get 100 subscribers that I started, and that's where I splintered off my art from the writing. If you're interested in that, there's a link below. It's a Scanner Tedley, so that goes into my kind of weird fiction writing that I do, which includes the fantasy, actually, because I don't really classify my fantasy as entirely fantasy. It's more like, in our group here, you would kind of recognize it more like a Spelljammer type of thing. So, interesting. Although it's not like, not everybody doesn't have ray guns or things like that. It's not that technologically advanced, but look them up. You look up my books, they're the World of Favorel books. So, okay. From here, I'm going to fly through this and finish up the stippling, and I'll speed it up so you guys can watch. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so. There's a little bell, and you can ring that bell, and that'll give you notifications on every time a new Ted Draws Dungeons comes out. Other than that, we come out every Wednesday, and roughly about a half hour for every little program. And I'm trying now to kind of end with some nice ASMR stippling. So I'll try and do that. I'll try and do that with every episode. So, okay. Until next time, you can watch the stippling, because I'll turn off the volume now on the microphone, or you can peace out, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.